In my previous video, I mentioned 3 pillars of understanding that helped me escape Christianity. This video will discuss the first, science. For as long as I can remember, I have had a love of science. While other kids were watching SpongeBob, I was watching documentaries about planets and far-off stars. I wanted to learn everything I could. I hungered for more knowledge, more detailed explanations. I believe it was my sophomore year of high school when the partitions in my mind separating my religion from my science began to be pulled back. Despite my love for science, I was still incredibly ignorant of large swaths of it. My curiosity focused mostly on space. I loved the idea of life on other planets, and I wanted to know all I could on the subject. I was, however, very ignorant of biology, and in particular evolution. Up until my AP biology class, my religion and thoughts on biology were allowed to stay in a nebulous, unexamined state. I never looked too closely at how evolution shot the idea that we were created in our present form by a god completely out of the water. But my mind couldn't remain in this superposition for long. My sophomore year, I had AP Biology with a teacher we called Mr. Mango. I loved the class. It was my first AP Science class, and I hungered for material more advanced than TV documentaries. However, about halfway through the class, I ran into massive cognitive dissonance. We started talking about evolution and the evidence for it. A lot of the students were skeptical, and some were even angry. I myself didn't want to believe it at first, but there it was, plain as day, written down in my textbook. Chapter after chapter explaining DNA replication, archaeological finds, so much information. And the book stated it all so matter-of-factly. I had assumed in my ignorance that evolution was far from proven, having the evidence displayed to me so calmly, like it was obviously as true as everything we had learned of cell division and the such, was very jarring for me. I was troubled by this for months. I remember talking with one of my friends at lunchtime. I expressed my confusion of the evolution material we had covered, and we talked for a bit. My friend revealed to me in no uncertain terms that he was an atheist. I asked him what that meant, and he said it meant he didn't believe in God. This sort of shocked me. I knew there were a plethora of religions in the world, but the idea that someone might not believe in any of them simply had not occurred to me. My mind frantically worked to comprehend the information. I remember sputtering out the first thing that came to my mind. But then where do you go when you die? My friend looked at me like I was an idiot and said, "You don't go anywhere, you're just dead." I didn't know what to say, so I let it go. I decided to dig deeper into the evidence for evolution and figure out what was true. I read my textbook, stayed after class to discuss things with my teacher, and slowly but surely I realized I had been a fool to reject evolution. My mind did a 180 and I embraced the science of evolution. It was fantastic, a whole new realm of science I had never explored before. I began watching ancient history documentaries that went over human evolution and was awestruck by them. And thus, for the first time in my life, religion truly took a back seat to science. Oh, I was still religious. I just wasn't thinking about religion as much. I was far more interested in DNA transcriptase, protein synthesis, and the such. Looking back, I am much reminded of a rock sitting on the edge of the ocean. Religion was a hard, rigid set of rules, a strong and steadfast set of beliefs in my mind. But while I wasn't looking, the waves of science were slowly eroding that rock. With each passing of the tide, more and more of the rock was washed away. As I learned more science, my religion retreated further and further away. The gaps that God once filled quite snugly were being filled with facts far more wondrous than God could ever hope to be. For my 17th birthday, my parents bought me a telescope. A nice telescope. It was a Celestron Omni XLT 150 reflector telescope. Fancy stuff. I set it up in my backyard and began searching for Orion's Nebula. Now, keep in mind I was doing this in the heart of San Diego, so light pollution was absolutely awful. But if you looked very carefully, you could barely make out the dagger on Orion's belt. Using those 3 faint stars as a guide and the little notebook I had of constellations, I was able to put Orion's Nebula into the sight of my telescope. I remember crying the first time I focused in on that pale gray mist. It hit me harder than I had expected, and it took me minutes to compose myself. I spent hours that night looking at all sorts of things. Saturn was up, its rings were clearly visible. I could make out Jupiter's great red spot and faintly see 3 of its moons circling that great giant. The craters on the moon jumped forward in such detail that I almost lost my breath. Religion never made me feel that way. As I sat there for hours, looking up at the stars, really looking, I saw true beauty with my own eyes for the first time in my life. It was so wondrous to me. I looked up and began to comprehend the numbers I had heard on all those documentaries. Trillions of stars, billions of light years, vast distance, ancient time. It was really an emotional experience. Having all those facts staring me in the face, it was spectacular, awe-inspiring, beautifully wonderful. Religion seemed a pale shadow of this great wonder that was staring me in the face. A less educated man might have looked up and said, "God is great, look at what he has created." But the thought never crossed my mind. This wasn't the work of God. This was the work of great forces. Gravity, electromagnetism, the small and weak nuclear forces, the titans of power that govern all that is around us. All that glory, all that majesty, created by simple, elegant rules. And that I, but a high school student, could look up and comprehend a fraction of that? That's worth more than all the fables on the planet put together. That makes the desert god of the Bible seem small by comparison. I wish I had a way better than words to explain all this to you. I wish I could grab people, thrust their faces into the eyepiece of my telescope and say, look here, At that before you, do you not recognize what that is? Can you not comprehend the importance of what you are staring at? Does it not move you with beauty? Does it not humble you with its vastness? Does not a torrent of weight crash down on you and make you weep at the very sight of it? Or can you not? Is it just some pretty colors to you? Are you not aware of that which you are staring in the face? Has your ignorance so blinded you that in your eyes this greatest of sights becomes nothing more than a passing amusement? Nothing more than a splattering of paint stained across the sky by an apathetic god wishing to amuse his golems? And I hear you protest, "No, no, it is I that see it truly, I that see it in all its greatness, for I know who made it that way." And I say to you, you've missed the point. You've missed the most beautiful part of it. To you, it's nothing more than a beautiful work of art. Beautiful, but unremarkable in its creation. I tell you, it is the fact that it is not designed that makes it beautiful. The fact that simple rules, working over nearly incomprehensible time, can do that all by itself. That adds a layer of beauty that no painter could ever paint into the most remarkable of masterpieces. And it is science that allows us to see the universe for what it is. Our ancestors looked up and saw nothing but holes in a great black cloth. Science revealed the true nature of those innumerable points of light. Science reveals to us the secrets of the universe, so that we, grandchildren of the stars, can look up at our celestial heritage and understand that from which we came.